You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
This is episode 694 of the Dressage Radio Show, official podcast of the United States Dressage Federation on the Horse Radio Network, brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products and Ride IQ. While Reese is competing at finals, we recorded a segment with Jane Hannigan talking about the Carl Hester Symposium put on by the New England Dressage Association. After that, Ride IQ has provided us with a tip from Lauren Sprieser.
This is Reese Stanfield from Georgetown, Kentucky.
And this is Philip Parks from Rockwood, Ontario, and you're listening to the Dressage Radio Show.
Well, hi, Phil. How are you?
I'm good. We're sort of cheating a little bit by recording the intro early because next week you've got a lot of stuff going on. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to be at the finals, which, it's actually 10 minutes from my house, which actually it's interesting when you show in your hometown. Because I also, have a full barn and stable and business here and a husband and a dog and cats. So it's always a little bit challenging for me. And sometimes I need a few things off my normal everyday plate. So we decided we would record early. I may be able to pop on the show, maybe not. We're not sure yet. But we wanted to get the main thing going because as I don't know if I've shared, but during competition, I really try to focus just on competition and what I need to do. And I really try to act like I'm out of town. So all my barn stuff, my wonderful manager, Jet, shout out to her. She takes the brunt of the work here. And, I will come and I for sure ride a couple, because I can, but I basically come in, I take care of what I need to do here, but then I go back to the competition so I can, I've got some other riders competing as well. So it's going to be a busy week, but I just love it when everyone comes to Lexington. It's like my friends come to see me right before we go to Florida. And I think it's so fun. It's like a November present before the holidays. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward. Big Mike. Last year, it was one of those, I had a great regional ride and I was super proud of him, but the best I1 test I had done. So I went to finals kind of very happy to be there. You know what I mean, Phil? But he was really green. He had done like 2 I1s. I had just said, oh, come on, I'll try it. He can do it. And he went in the big All-Tech stadium and poor guy, I just could feel him. He just was like a turtle. He was like, Mom, can you carry me? They're in this huge stadium and I could feel him. He was just didn't know what to do. So we're a year older. I specifically took him to St. Louis where there was an indoor stadium because he had never really competed inside. And then, you take him in the All-Tech. So I feel like I've prepped him really well. My coach was just here, Scott. I've done some virtual lessons with him. My sister, who's my eyes on my ground, she's been here. So I feel really good about it. So I hope to report in a few weeks how great he was. But it is truly an honor to be able to ride, at the U.S. finals. And I don't take it for granted, even if I live really close. And I'm really looking forward to it. So I'll have lots to talk about after next week. But we've got a great show that we've recorded a little bit early, but we think you're going to really enjoy it. And we're going to come back with a segment from Jane Hannigan talking about the Carl Hester Symposium.
This Nutrition Minute is brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products, the company that simplifies your search for research-proven nutritional supplements at kppusa.com.
Did you know that easy keepers and horses on restricted diets are often at risk for vitamin and mineral deficiencies? Most easy keepers are maintained on hay, and some get a few handfuls of grain a day, and most of these horses get little to no green grass. Diets that don't include significant levels of green grass or recommended amounts of fortified concentrates just don't supply enough vitamins and minerals. Many horse folks don't realize that hay alone, even high-quality green hay, is not an adequate source of many vitamins. For example, when grass is cut and dried for hay, the vitamins quickly lose their potency. 70% of the vitamin E found in grass is lost in the first week after it is cut for hay. One way to ensure that your special needs horse is getting all the vitamins and minerals he needs is to add a vitamin and mineral supplement to his diet. A well-balanced supplement will provide the nutrients your horse requires without adding unwanted calories, starches, and sugars. Microphase, made by Kentucky Performance Products, is a vitamin and trace mineral supplement that bridges the gap in your feeding program. With Microphase, your horse receives adequate and balanced vitamin and mineral nutrition without unwanted calories or other ingredients. The minerals in Microphase have been chelated, a process that protects minerals during digestion and increases their absorption in the intestine. Microphase provides vitamins, such as vitamin E, in a natural form, so your horse receives optimal results from this supplement.
This Nutritional Minute has been brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products. You can find all of their terrific products at kppusa.com.
Well, tonight we are so happy to have Jane Hannigan on the line. She's an FEI rider, trainer, competitor, and she went to the Carl Hester Clinic and took the best notes. So I was going to grab you, Jane. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
We're thrilled to have you, and they were so great, and truly, I loved your notes. They're coming from a trainer's perspective, but also, just it's so nice to be able to sit down for any continuing education event, but to get your notes was fantastic. So tell us a little bit about the clinic in general, and then we'll start with some of your highlights.
Well, the clinic was pretty fantastic. I've seen Carl. This is the third time. I saw him first in California, and then the NITA clinic that they did in, I think it was 2017. And California and that were in 2017. So, of course, I didn't want to miss this because he's got just these little ways of saying things in this cheeky British accent that are just fantastic. It's absolutely spot on, and it cleans up your riding in a way that I think he's, because of all those canter walk transitions. If anyone was there and they watched, they were like 10,000 canter walk transitions until it was right. It was incredible. So he's fun and cheeky, and the horses were great, and the atmosphere of the weather was perfect. So can't say enough. Nita, thank you for doing these things. So
I think it's great. I've seen Carl up here, way up north as well, and just the way that he brings such great information and really exposes the riders to a level of looking for perfection without it getting monotonous and boring. I think that's where you've got to, get in there and say, yes, you've got to do another transition, but here's a quick little quip, and then off you go and trying to do it again, so that it's a relaxed way of getting that perfection rather than kind of drilling. Like, no, you've got to do it again. You've got to find a relaxed way to deliver the message that no, that's not perfect, but that's okay.
But continue and do again until the horse gets the idea. Now, in California, he told one of the riders that she was sitting there like a Christmas fairy in a tree doing nothing while the horse was just doing these terrible transitions. And everyone laughed. But then because he said it in such a charming way, being a Christmas fairy in a tree, that she actually started to participate and do the timing that was required to get the downward canter to the walk. Because it was really very technical about the timing and the feeling that you're looking for, instead of just, like you said, not just monotony of do it again, do it again, do it again. He was very specific in his instructions, which was super helpful, because then anyone can go home and repeat the exercises. It was on everybody had to be reprimanded about not cantering to the walk when the head came down. He wanted it as the head came up. You asked for the walk and you gave on the reins, so that the horse would then go into a soft outline, not be slammed onto the forehand or just fall in a heap. So, it was really fantastic the way he did it.
Yeah, and I think he's got to, as a clinician coming in, you've got to be able to correct and direct the riders, but because there's so many spectators, you can't embarrass people or make them feel lesser than, and
don't you think his sense of humor, he can say things that would normally embarrass people, but it doesn't. He said to one person that they were carrying their reins like they were holding a handbag instead of, hitchhiking, like thumbs on top. So it was just, and most people are like, oh, can you believe he said that? But the way he delivers it is so charming and entertaining that they change their hand position immediately. So I wish I, in my teaching, could be charming and entertaining and British and have all these quips. But so that's why I feel his material.
Yeah, I think that's part of it is just the accent. You can get away with a lot,
Oh my God, he's so cheeky. It's fantastic. But and just the analogies and the delivery is just quite entertaining. Oh my God, he told one girl that she looked like a begging dog. Like really. The hand position again.
That's pretty insulting, actually.
Ouch. Yeah,
right? That's insulting, but everybody giggled and she changed her hand position. It was pretty fantastic.
That's awesome.
That was, I think, in the, with the young horses. A lot of the horses, it was really interesting. A lot of them were behind the bit, not above the bit. So we didn't really see horses that needed to be brought back down and round. We saw the majority of the horses needed to be brought back up to the bridle because most of the people ride, how did he say it nicely? He said they ride by feel, not by the outline. And so you need mirrors or somebody checking in on the ground because everyone was kind of riding on the curb behind the bit. So interesting. Right. There's a lot about contact and really, really interesting. You saw it, 2 days, a lot of horses and none of them, I think maybe the one chestnut mare, 7-year-old needed to be put a little rounder in the canner collection. And I can't really recall any other horse that needed to be changed.
So he had some 4 and a 6-year-old, right? So he started with some youngsters. Kind of what was the highlight from that group?
From them, to me, the highlight was the first thing that he did with both horses was having them do small trot steps, like 2-3 strides of small trot and then trot out again. And repeating this until the horse is on the hind legs and the horse's hind legs aren't pushing out. Because what happens is he repeats this exercise throughout every single level. And then eventually with the Priest and George horses, you got to watch Passage developing out of the same exercise that he did with the 4-year-old and the 6-year-old in the first session. So it was really, very nicely linked together. And he also highlighted the fact that, yes, we're working on straightness with the 4 and the 6-year-old, but that straightness is something that you come to and work on every day forever. And he said, yes, I'm sorry, it's forever. And everybody laughed, but it's true. It's forever. True. And I think that a lot of adult amateurs feel that once a horse is trained to Grand Prix, that they must be straight. And yes, they're much straighter than a normal horse, but you and I both know doing Grand Prix, the level of straightness you need is now, we're talking millimeters, but they still have to get even straighter in self-carriage, more through all that. But it was great. And I think one of the other things he said was that going for an empty hand, suppled off the bridle is not what you're looking for. It's give and retake the reins and, teaching the canter to part instantly then that you could give on the inside rein so that eventually in your changes you could give on the rein as well. So I think those were pretty cool things from that first session, and that winning the young horse classes obviously isn't what it's all about. It's developing a horse to be a Grand Prix horse. So it's not about developing those auction horse gaits. It's about developing, elastic horses that can shorten and normal trot or lengthen even, So it was just great how the first session linked right onto the Grand Prix for me. Yeah. I don't know if everybody else felt that, but I was like, yay.
I've only seen Carl teach once, but he is such a trainer. Like that's what I found really interesting with him was how he is a trainer and he has this very specific kind of system in mind, which I think was really cool. Like you said, at a 4-year-old, he's looking at what he's going to need when the horse is, whatever age and doing the Grand Prix, right? So he's already sort of installing that, which I think is fascinating. because that's his goal. And a lot of people have other goals, and that's totally fine. But his goal is a Grand Prix horse, hard stop.
Well, he said Vallegro won everything. And he said that's an exceptional young horse. So when you have an exceptional young horse, of course, do the young horse classes. That's totally fine and wonderful and great to win those prizes. But like you said, it's a system of transitions that then gets you to the Grand Prix instead of just to training level or first level, or, it wasn't like the 4-year-old set was just to do training level and first level. It was like to do the Grand Prix. It was awesome. Awesome. You said, he's a trainer.
Yeah. And so then he moved on to a third level and a junior, which is also kind of equivalent to third level / fourth level. Yes. So what was that group like? The
junior horse is giant. I don't think that anybody that reads the notes will even understand this horse is giant and very uphill. The girl has a beautiful seat and she's a beautiful rider, but he had to work on the canter to the walk transition because in the junior test, you still have to do a simple change. So the junior test, you have flying changes, you have single flying changes, and you have a canter walk, and you have to stretch in the trot, in the sitting of all craziness. Mm-hmm. So they have to, it's not given retake the reins, Uber striking. You have to basically stretch the horse like in the young horse classes. So they're making sure that the juniors don't skip steps. And what he was saying is that she needs to get better at the canter walk where the horse is lighter because she was doing it on the contact and she needs to do it so the horse is more in self-carriage and balanced. And the second day, huge improvement. The young lady did a lovely job and, has a beautiful seat and a really good understanding, but I think she's 16 years old. So, not an older junior, she's a younger junior. And that was pretty fantastic that he really just took the basics apart and pretty much neither of them did the changes. And, he worked pretty much on the forward and back in the canter the same way he did with the young horses in the trot. So it's like 2 to 3 strides back and then out again. So he did the same exercise in the canter with the third level horses to prepare to get to the flying changes eventually. Because if you can't, well, and I know, everybody knows, if you can't change the canter, you can't really do flying changes because you have to be able to collect and go forward. Yeah. So that was pretty awesome that he basically spent most of that session getting their basics better so that then the next day they could carry on with, more things. And he brought up the fact that in his teaching with, he calls him Dr. B, Dr. Bettelsheimer, is that he would only say, okay, go on. Okay, bring the horse back. Okay, go on. So they would just be constantly on and back and on and back. And Carl stopped perfectly halted square because he wasn't allowed to ask a question unless everything was square. And I know, crazy, right? Does anyone ever do that to their students? No.
We should.
Right? We need to adopt Carl's thing. So he's like, every halt has to be square. And Dr. B was really on about it. But if you need to ask a question, you have to be able to halt square to ask a question. And so he asked him, is there anything other than on and back? And Dr. B said, no, it's all on and back. That's all everything is. And it's true. Yeah. Of course you do flying changes and this and that, but if you can't have a horse that shortens and lengthens and, listens quickly. And that was, he really hit home with that. Like the canter depart, he wants to make sure people only do with one ask, not 3. It's not 1, 2, 3 for a canter depart because then they go into haunches in. It's 1 and then one and done pretty much so that you can do the changes later. Prepare with the inside leg, ask with the outside, you're done. So and that was pretty cool.
That makes sense too, because especially with the junior test and the young riders, but specifically the juniors, the changes are in weird places.
Aren't they? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they're in weird places because in when I happened to be there and I talked to a judge at Young Riders, they were saying, they did that specifically so that even if you had a trained horse, right, there were places that trained horses wouldn't know where the changes were, or you had to ask the horse. It wasn't like it's exactly like the Prix St. George. Like you have to ask. Right. And a lot of kids got in trouble with that. So I think that just seeing that and hearing why he did that was really really specific and strategic of teaching those kiddos how to ride that. If anybody wants a challenge, go through that junior test, because it is actually
oh my God, right? I think the adults should have to ride like an adult version of the junior test, because it is true. They're hard. And you're right. Really that makes a lot of sense that it's to check the training, not the tricks and the pattern.
Right.
I mean, they still have that canter simple change on the center line to check straightness. It's not a wonky line, and the kids really have to do it. And the other thing he was on about is that people need to learn how to put down the whip, because when those juniors and young riders, they qualify with a whip. And then he said, you never have seen more slow dressage than you do at CDIs with the juniors and young riders, because they never put the whip down when they train. So you have to put it down, pick it up, put it down, pick it up. Don't just train with it all the time, because the horse has to get on the leg, not the whip. So he's very clever about that. But I think it's because, like you said, he's a trainer. He knows where he's going with this. And it's pretty cool. Like the young lady also, they worked on doing halts that were square. And so it was a few of the trot steps that they did with the young horses, 2 to 3 active, smaller trot strides, but he wants them active. And then 2 active walk steps and halt square. But we're not talking blobbing into the halt. We're talking active. Everything's active. So if you don't do it when they're young, you can't do it when you're in third level. So interesting. Really pretty cool.
Yeah. So how are the 7-year-olds in the developing Pre-St. George?
I think that day one, Olivia, she won the developing St. George, and that horse unfortunately pulled his shoe. So we didn't get to see him, Johnny. Be good, or I think that's his name.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they had to move things around, and so they put Shannon on Angelique with Lauren Samus, and I can't remember Lauren's horse's name. So that was really interesting, because they talked a lot. I think we actually skipped over the 7-year-olds.
Yeah.
So the 7-year-olds were the next ones, and he said the coolest thing to one of them. That was different horses. That wasn't Lauren, and that was Jordan LaPlaca. And then I can't remember the young lady's name. She rides for Mo Swanson, but really cool horses. But he said that basically with the shoulder ins, they were doing too much of an angle in the shoulder ins. And he said, I know everybody says you can train on a 4-track, but if you train on a 4-track shoulder in, you take them away from the outside rein. If you train on a 3-track, you get them into the outside rein. And I think it's just a very simple way of saying it, is that if you go for tons of angle, because I've always been told it's more like leg yielding if you go for too much angle, but the way he said it is, it takes them away from the outside rein, or off. He literally said it takes them off of it. And you could see when they got the right angle, that wasn't just pushing the haunches out, because he did it on the quarter line a lot. This was hard. And it was great to watch the shoulder in just develop the trot and get the horse more connected, instead of, disassembling and just leg yielding.
Disconnected. Yeah. So one of my pet peeves is watching someone do a shoulder in that has 0 bend and is just really a rider kicking the horse away from the end. It's just a leg yield that doesn't do anything, doesn't do anything for achieving, the stronger hind leg that the exercise is meant to develop, and the bend, so that you can ride. Pre-St. George has a shoulder in a small circle. Those should all connect together into a half pass. They should all connect together, right? And a lot of time you see that movement ridden, horses going sideways in the shoulder in, then the horses going sideways around the circle, and then the horses. That's
exactly what happened to the young rider, the junior, with the gigantic horse, is that her trot was too big. And he was discussing swing speed, which is just the speed that your horse should go at, not too slow, not too fast, not too long, not too short. It's like this finding the right elasticity. And that horse went from a shoulder in, and he said, it was just going too big around the ring. And he said, fine, do an 8-meter circle. And the haunches just swung out, like you just said. So he had them bring the trot back into a, more organized. And he said, see, if you ride the shoulder in wrong, you ride the circle wrong. And then if you're riding the circle wrong, then the haunches are going wrong for the half pass. So exactly what you just said. So see, you're Carl Hester. So,
Yeah. Bill, look at you.
Well,
Yeah, you're
like
Carl
it's just, this year I've had 3 horses at Pre St. George, so I've ridden that test a lot. And
it's
just,
proper training, right?
yeah, I think it's just the way that you have to think about the way the tests are designed, and all of the thought that went into the design of that test, and all the mistakes that can and I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I after riding lots of those tests, it's sort of like, oh, I can't do that, right? Because then this happens, and then I get this bad score, and that half pass is a double coefficient, so you don't need to be fishtailing into it because you need the scores, right? So.
But the fishtailing is from a badly ridden shoulder in, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You're 36 St. George. You finally change it, right?
Yeah.
Figure out how to write it. Or
I didn't do that anymore, right? No, it's true. Yeah. It's pretty funny. I know, Reese. We've been riding the St. George for how long now? Oh my God, right?
We don't talk about it, but it's true. It's true. I mean, but it's everywhere too, right? You see it.
In the Grand Prix.
You see it in the Grand Prix. Well, I've done it myself, unfortunately. I mean,
but you know what? It doesn't matter. But we know if you train a shoulder in correctly, and you don't bring them into the 4-track thing, and then leg yield their hindquarters out, then you can get to the circle. You can get to the half pass, just like the Grand Prix. If you can't bend, you're not going to be able to do that half pass. I'm sorry, but it's just not going to happen.
No,
so
it's not. And then you're going to.
It turns into a leg yielding, and it just turns into an ugly thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I think with the 7-year-olds, he also had one of the people do posting trot in the half pass, talking about half pass, to help with the timing of the aids and to get the horse to stay in. It was dropping from this, amazing trot into a flatter trot into the half pass. So he took it onto a diagonal line, did less angle with the hindquarters than required for the half pass, but a little bit of haunches end feeling. Had her go in posting trot and work on the horse staying in the correct swing instead of just pushing more haunches to get the perfect thing. Because the horse it was 7. It needed to gain strength to have that. I mean, its trot was gigantic. It was, this chestnut mare, and she really had a huge trot. And to the left, she didn't have a problem keeping up with it. But to the right, she would drop into the other trot. So that was a clever exercise as well. Just diagonal posting trot, less angle, and a haunches in, and just work on the inside leg aid, keeping the horse from falling down on the inside shoulder. So that was pretty cool.
That's super.
And and he did, I think with one of the horses, he did counter canter to work on the straightness in the collection, because the horse was fishtailing in the collected canter. Haunches were kind of going in a lot, and he does a lot of circle work with the collection as well, to work on the pirouettes, but then we'll use counter canter on the rail to do the collection so that the horse will stay straight, which is great.
That's awesome.
Great. He also said something interesting about, instead of we all look for the inside eye, he said if you look down the inside rein for the nose, then you can tell if you've got the bend for the shoulder in and for the half pass. And it really applied a lot to the look down the inside rein to the nose. How interesting is that? So I was like, oh, I'm feeling that. Totally taking that one. Yeah. And it works. Yeah. It works really well.
Oh, I'm going to practice that tomorrow. Yeah. I'm like,
today. Yeah. It's not off. Look down the inside rein for the nose. So it's just a different way of saying it, but it's because one of the horse's heads was tipping. And, so to get proper bend, you don't want to just crank the head over and have the pole flop in and the nose flop out. That's not bend. So it was just a really clever, great way of talking about it. And,
that's awesome.
See, I can just keep talking forever.
Keep going. Keep going. I love it. So there was a 21-year-old. There was like a young rider, right?
Yeah, that's Liz Austin's girl that's been working for her. That was pretty unbelievable, because this horse is the biggest, most powerful canter. And you have to bring up Shannon with Angelique. That is incredible. But we can talk about that later, because the Sunday version, So Shannon rode with Lauren, and those exercises were pretty fantastic as well. But, you know, a lot of the problems that Lauren's horse was having is that it was not able to do the canter on the spot to the walk. It was falling into the trot. And they worked at really getting the horse to the point where it would carry. And then the next day it was pretty fantastic because she was, the way I said it in the notes is that she was shaped like a croissant the first day. That's not his words. That's me just joking around. But she was, you know, C-shaped to the right, and her butt was coming in, and then her head was coming in because he wanted to make sure that she was bending to the right, not always bending to the left. And then she was shaped like a croissant. Her ass wouldn't stop coming in. Her hind legs were getting wider. She's getting upset. But then the next day, oh my God, shoulder 4, it was magical. The horse collected. It was really nice because they wanted to work on the pirouettes. But he said, you know, until your horse can really carry on the hind leg in the collection, there's no point in trying to do the pirouette because then they just step wide. And especially mares, they'll step wide. So that was really fun to watch the transformation with that horse over the 2 days. And her trot work was already doing all the Grand Prix work. You know, it could passage, and she looked really strong in the trot work, but in the canter work, she needed some work. On the right lead canter, the left was good. So it was that, you know, I think that a lot of people think that canters are always going to be perfect, and then they're going to call the vet and inject them until they're perfect. But it's training. So in the 2 days, you really watched his, you know, way of training come through this horse. And Lauren, she's a really good rider. So it was easy for him to do, but, well, you know, it was work for everybody, but it was a really nice transformation to see. So then with Shannon's horse, Shannon has a 7-year-old mare that I know she won the Prix St. George, the small tour at Devon. And as a 7-year-old, the reason she can do this is because she has like a neat and tidy gait. So they're not like outrageous gaits. And she's really balanced and really well trained. But Shannon rode with Carl, does a lot of the same things that he does. And so her system is, Shannon Oldenburg is it's a really fantastic. So, you know, he was just watching her go and just talking about how, you know, lovely it is, and wait until you guys see this horse trot after she does the canter work, because her trot work was just very small and neat and tidy, but you wouldn't have bought this horse. It was unbelievable to watch her trot grow into the second trot, and then she can already passage, and it was just really cool. So everyone needs to ride with Shannon and Carl.
and they're lovely. Yeah, Shannon's lovely as well. Absolutely lovely. And within the Olympics and Pan Am Games, and, you know, a team rider for sure. So to watch that, and I think that's a window right into watching that whole system and why it works for those two. And that is so cool. And then there was
cool. I've never seen her ride one that she's had from a foal before. You know, and most of us don't get them as a baby, and she got this one as a baby. And then she rode the mother. So Carl and she both knew the mother, and then they, you know, brought her through all of this. You know, they did 1 tempies, and this horse is 7, and she's balanced, and she can handle it, and it's not difficult, and it's easy, and it's fun. And it was really, really cool to watch. You know, she just did a really amazing job. And the horse looked really happy, and like it just wasn't hard, you know? I mean, it wasn't like she had auction gaits, and it wasn't, you know, the second trot was going to win the young horse classes, but the warm-up trot was a normal, you know, it was a normal horse's trot. So I think that's something that I hope the adult amateurs watching the clinic got inspired about, because for me, it was really neat to see. You don't need to buy auction trots and auction canters. You need neat and tidy, you know, horses that can train. Exactly.
Balance. A good conformation leads to good balance, which leads to eventually the Grand Prix, which, I mean, it's a lot of years invested, but, you know.
Well, I mean, it is a lot of years, but it's, well, we're all dressage nerds. We understand. It's so cool. Isn't it just so
fun.
cool?
Yeah. Yeah. That's so fun.
To me, 7, 7, that's a long time to invest time in a horse, but it's like, 7, whatever, that's fine. It's
Yeah.
so young.
So young. And then there was a Grand Prix horse, right? So he did go through the Grand Prix.
Yeah. So then they had the 21-year-old girl with the coolest horse with the coolest hind leg. He looked like the Allegro. He was a Negro. And that was super fun to watch because you can always make it better. And, he said basically like this girl has learned how to do dressage on this horse, and then she'll be able to take the feeling to another horse. He said that after his first, I don't remember if it was World Cup or World Games, he said that one person said, oh, yes, now you've gone to the, whatever the thing was. And so you've learned how to steer on a schoolmaster type horse, and now you have to learn how to train a horse. So it was just super entertaining the way he said it. But the girl that was riding, you can see that her body now knows how to do these things from riding this unbelievably cool horse. It's not easy, but oh my God, the hind leg and the canter, it was a 10 canter. It was really, really, really fun to watch. So I think that I'm hoping she got a lot out of it. In the one Tempe's, because his canter's so big, she was struggling. So they went back to the exercise where you just do a 1-1 and then a space and a 1-1 and space and a 1-1 and space. And then eventually she got all the ones because they started working. So they do it on the long side. He calls it a flick-flack, the 1-1, and you do it both directions, and then you go and approach the ones again, and then they worked really well. But she was, I believe the way you said it is that she was behind the ask for the change, or she wasn't releasing the horse to the change, and she was behind the horse, and the horse needed to be with her instead of her trying to be with the horse. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I've seen that situation. I've experienced that situation.
Yeah,
So.
I've been there.
Right. We're throwing ourselves all over the place because the horse isn't actually listening to the aid. And he really wants the change aid off of your heel instead of off of like a mush of your whole leg. So he wants it just like a sharp, quick, it's not sharp, but off of your heel. So that the horse
change is sharp, not the aid. That's
exactly. So that the horse responds sharply. Thank you. The horse responds quickly to the aid and doesn't have like a mush leg that lasts for 3 strides. So she was getting behind the aids for the 1 Tempe's, and she was trying to stay up to the horse instead of the horse, keeping up with her ask.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just really interesting watching the schoolmaster version of all of that. And then the Grand Prix horse was Mika, and she, oh my God, what a horse, Piaf Passage, unbelievable. But she got the lesson, which he's done at every one of these clinics where he does the centerline canter collection. Instead of doing 1,000 pirouettes, you do the collection in shoulder 4 up to where the pirouette is, and then you keep the shoulder 4 after the pirouette spot, and then you change to the new shoulder in, you do the flying change, and then you repeat the exercise the other way for the other pirouette. Because in the Grand Prix, we've got the 2 pirouettes on the center line. And, I remember doing this exercise with Robert 1,000 years ago with my horse. And it was, how many center lines? I don't know, 56 center lines later, maybe I learned how to do it. But that's a joke. But so she got to do it over and over and over. And it was nice to see that he was like, okay, we're going to do some schooling pirouettes away from the center line. Then we're going to do the shoulder in exercise on the center line with the canter on the spot, then the flying change, then the shoulder in with the canter on the spot, not the pirouette. And then she was pirouetting on one side of the center line because she was making it big and then small, and she needed to make it small and then big. So start the pirouette small and then make it bigger. So it's 2 sides of the center line. And again, Robert Dover, this is the same lesson I've had, and everybody that does the Grand Prix learns this lesson, but it was fun to watch it again, just from the sitting there, not doing it, and watching her horse get better and better, and then actually pirouette around the center line. So that was super fun. And then the half passes, I think that she was going faster in one of them and had to slow down. I think the right half pass, the horse was again falling a little down on the right shoulder. And so he brought her into a little bit more of like a second trot, almost to the passage, to get the horse up off the inside shoulder to half pass. And I don't think many people talk about the inside front in the half pass, where we know in the Grand Prix it's such a big reach that you really have to have a really good inside front leg to do it. And the horse was more focused on crossing the outside front than lifting the inside. And so that was really fun to watch her, learn that as well. And her Piaffe Passage is awesome. That horse is really good, but he had some very good advice for her where it was active. Her legs had to stay active on the way into the Piaffe. And then she had to think of riding, like thinking out of it and riding patiently out of it instead of pushing the horse out of it. Because a lot of people, they push in the Piaffe and then they push even harder to get to the Passage. And he said you have to actually settle down and wait for the Passage to happen, it was cool to watch that happen.
Yeah, that's really
great.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love it. Any
sounds like an awesome experience overall. You got a lot of things to watch, and you got a lot out of it, and now you're helping us to inspire.
Look down to look down the inside rein at the nose for Ben.
At the nose, at the shoulder.
And for the shoulder in and the half pass, instead of just looking at the eye, because the eye doesn't tell you if the nose is tipping. Fantastic. Hello.
You're like, I got it. Right? Well, Jane, this was awesome. So you've got actually on your Facebook page, you have all the notes written down. So can you tell people how they can find you online?
Well, it's just Jane Hannigan Facebook. It's open. It's not a private. So anybody can just look me up on Facebook and then access the notes. They're right there. I'm on the Instagram too, which I think is Jane Hannigan, at Jane Hannigan 1970, something crazy like that. Because I was born in 1970. I'm 52. Yay! I'm the same age as Carl Hester. It's awesome. Really great clinic and really nice to watch him. Like the summary of the whole basic clinic is that what you do with a 4-year-old is the same thing you do with a Grand Prix horse, because to do Piaffe, you have to be able to close the trot and quicken it to Piaffe. And then with a young horse, it's the same thing to get the hind legs to first learn how to come underneath. You have to shorten the trot because you can't just trot around for 6 hours and think anything's going to change. So he said with him and Charlotte, if he's doing a talk and Charlotte's on a horse, she'll have done 30 to 40 transitions or moving the horse around within the first, 4 to 5 minutes. And most people in their rides, it takes them one whole time around to do one transition. So he said, bear that in mind, that we're looking for a high level. And with the young horse, they can't do 400,000 transitions, but the higher the level gets, yes, they need to do. It's all transition work. It's pretty cool. It all links the chain together. And canter walk will eventually get you better changes, and canter shortening will eventually get you better changes and better pirouettes. And, if you do the homework, so everybody talks about the basics and no one really talks about what the basics are. They just talk about doing them. Mm-hmm. Carl shows you what the basics are, which is great.
That is so cool. I love that. Well, Jane, thank you so much. This was so fun.
Thanks, Reese. Appreciate it.
The Horsemanship Radio podcast is dedicated to the advancement of great horsemanship throughout the world. Monty Roberts often stops by to present on this podcast, hosted by his daughter and legacy strategist, Debbie Roberts-Laux. The show includes segments, tips, and interviews exploring effective training centered on the well-being of the horse. This multiple award-winning podcast has 1.6 million downloads to date. HorsemanshipRadio.com, sponsored by Hands On Gloves and Monty Roberts University.
As a listener of the show, you might have heard us talk about Ride IQ. Ride IQ is a new concept for equestrian, and it presents a really cool opportunity. The opportunity for you to take a lesson with a top coach anytime you'd like. Here's how it works. Ride IQ is a mobile app for iPhone and Android with hundreds of on-demand listen while you ride audio lessons taught by top coaches across dressage, eventing, even the natural horsemanship, and sports psychology. In fact, I'm one of the coaches you can take lessons with Ride IQ if you're not already tired of my voice. Whether you're looking to add structure to your rides, try new exercises, or build confidence, Ride IQ can help. With Ride IQ, you won't be waiting for your in-person lessons to make progress. You can make exceptionally productive rides on training days as well. Every membership automatically includes a 2-week free trial. After that, membership is just $29.99 per month. Because you're a Dressage Radio Show listener, you'll get $15 off your first payment after the free trial. Just go to rideiq.com to sign up and use the code DRS to get your discount. That's rideiq.com and promo code DRS to start having the most productive schooling rides you've ever had.
For today's trainer tip, I want to thank Ride IQ for providing us with this tip from Lauren Sprieser on equitation.
And I wanted to take you all through my equitation checklist. What I'm thinking about with my position. Position is not just about how pretty you look in pictures. It is about functionality. And before I've gotten on, I've made sure that my girth is tight, but I've also made sure that my saddle is in the middle of the horse, that it isn't off to the right or left before I even throw my foot in the stirrup. I'm particularly mindful of that as, like most riders, I mount from the left, and I use a mounting block, which is dramatically better for horses' backs than getting on from the ground. Even if you are a light, petite flower, use a mounting block, please. But it has a propensity to pull the saddles to the left, obviously, as I set foot in the stirrup. And so, step one, always make sure that I'm sitting in the middle, that my girth is tight. Some horses are puffers. They'll kind of bluh and hold their breath and then exhale it out as you get on or after you've been on for a couple minutes and your girth can be loose. So check that girth and make sure that when you do so, you're sitting in the middle. Most riders tend to sit to the left. Fun fact. Then I'm thinking about how I'm sitting. Not to get too friendly with y'all, but I have 2 seat bones and a pubic bone. And for me, I think about 55% on my seat bones, 45% on my pubic bone. Maybe those numbers change a little bit. You can hear I've just changed from the grass to the driveway for a second while we wander around on our way to the ring. I want the littlest bit more mass behind me than in front of me. I am thinking about, however, not leaning back. I want there roughly to be a straight line from my ear to my shoulder to my hip to my heel. Women tend to put the leg out in front of them. Just a little bit is not a crime. A lot is a big crime. And sometimes people have their leg out in front of them because that's just how the shape of their pelvis corresponds to the shape of their horse, particularly for women who are more petite on horses that are a little chunkier. Sometimes it's really hard to roll your thigh flat against the horse when the horse has a bigger caboose than you do. But some women and men, truly, anybody, stick their feet out in front of them because they are braced against the stirrup. So there is my next thing that I check. Are my knees bent? Am I placing my feet lightly into my stirrup irons, or am I mashing them down like an ex-boyfriend's face is underneath my foot? Tempting as it is to smush that ex-boyfriend's face, don't do it. Keep a little bit of weight in your stirrups, just enough to keep them, but not so much that you are clinging to them for dear life. And I think about squeezing a grapefruit behind my knee. That encourages the bend in the knee, but more importantly, it encourages the activity of the hamstring. I think that people are surprised to find that for me, the hamstring and the quadricep are part of the seat. Everyone thinks seat means butt. And slightly more educated people think that seat means belly, back, and butt. Seat means belly, back, butt, and hamstrings and quadriceps. And my hamstring is always a little bit activated. There is always energy flowing through it. My elbows move right now. I have one hand on the reins, on the buckle, like the good pony clubber I am. But if I had both hands on the reins, like a responsible adult, I'm thinking about keeping my elbows forward and back, forward and back, forward and back to match my horse's contact. Then, last but not least, I bet you're looking down. I bet you're doing it right now. I'm on to you. All the way from Loxahatchee, Florida, I see a looker downer. So look up. And when you look up, don't think, I'm going to brace my shoulder back and down and arch my low back, because that's disengaging your abdomen. I think about keeping my low back flat against the back waistband of my breeches, against the belt that I'm wearing, not art. And yes, I do think about bringing my shoulder blades back and down, like I want to tuck my scapulae into my back pockets. And I think about lifting my chin, bringing my ears back behind my shoulders a little bit. You can't actually do that, but that's what I think about. Like I want to bring my ears back behind my shoulders and lift my gaze, not just by my eyeballs looking up, but by my chin, my nose looking up. But all of that cannot be at the expense of arching my low back.
Well, as always, everybody, we love email and Facebook shout outs. Keep them coming. And don't forget our book club of the month or a quarter. It's The Horse Brain, Human Brain, The Neuroscience of Horsemanship by Janet Jones. Great book. We're really looking forward to it. And as always, you can find our show notes and links to today's guests on our website, dressageradio.com. Like us on Facebook, just search Dressage Radio Show. Follow us on Twitter at Horse Radio. My website is maplecrestfarmky.com, and my email is reese@horseradionetwork.com.
I think the best way to find me is through Facebook, or my email is philip@horseradionetwork.com. I'd like to thank our sponsors for allowing us to put on a good show. That's Kentucky Performance Products and Ride IQ. If you'd like to support our show and the Horse Radio Network, you can do that through the Auditor program found at horseradionetwork.com.
Everybody, keep your heels down and your shoulders back, and we will talk to you next week.